right, good morning and welcome to Hudson Institute. My name is Riley Walters. I'm a senior fellow here, and thank you for joining us for our event this morning, China's interference in Taiwan's election and implications for America. Back in January, Taiwan held a very successful presidential election, and the inauguration of that will be happening in just a couple of months. But before the election, we saw quite a significant uptake in Chinese interference in that election, spreading of disinformation online, trying to sway not just the Taiwanese public, but of course the international perception of Taiwan as a reliable partner, a thriving democracy, and of course a resilient economy. Now, Taiwan's experience, they're very experienced in this actually. This isn't the first time, of course, the PRC has attempted to interfere in their elections. But when we look at their experience, I think it's very relevant for our own upcoming election, given that back in March, the annual threat assessment of the US intelligence community assessed that, that the PRC, quote, may attempt to influence the US elections in 2024 at some level because of its desire to sideline critics of China and magnify US societal divisions. PRC actors have increased their capabilities to conduct covert influence operations and disseminate information. And this is based off of their own assessment that TikTok accounts run by PRC propaganda arm repeatedly targeted candidates from both political parties during the US midterm election cycle in 2022. And so, again, Taiwan, of course, has had to deal with this for years now, Chinese interference in their elections. And so we have seen various efforts to combat those efforts pop up. And today we're very excited to welcome several of those initiatives, various programs and companies and efforts both within Taiwan and internationally, to talk about their experiences and what we can actually learn, both from a technical side, but also I think from a public policy point of view. And so, real quick, if you'll let me introduce our speakers today, we'll then go down the line through their presentations, and then we'll open up for questions and answers from the audience. So, first, to my immediate left, we have Chihao Yu. He is a software engineer, information designer, and co-founder of IORG, or Taiwan Information Environment Research Center, based in Taiwan. Chihao coordinates scientific research, data engineering, community engagement, and international exchange at IORG, directing organizational capacity toward enhancing informational literacy, safeguarding election integrity, and building democratic resilience in Taiwan. IORG is a Taiwanese civil society organization specialized in information environment research and communications. Since 2019, human-AI collaboration with IORG has been identifying information manipulation, authoritarian influence, and other noteworthy activities impacting Taiwan's public discourse and democratic processes. IORG hosts workshops nationwide with partners to share information literacy and cybersecurity tools with teachers and students, youth and seniors, and empowering them to be more informed decision-making as citizens of our digital democracy. To his left, we have Billion Li. Billion is the co-founder of Cofacts, an open-source fact-checking AI chatbot, which she helped launch in 2016. Li has an extensive experience engaging with the international community and presenting at various technical conferences. Since founding Cofacts, Li has been a speaker at the East Asian Democracy Forum, participated in the Professional Fellows Program Fellowship at PolitiFact and International Fact-Checking Network, Palantir, a speaker at the US-Taiwan Tech Challenge, and most recently a speaker at the Global Taipei Dialogue, How to Safeguard Electoral Integrity in Taiwan. And finally, we have John Fuse, who is the founder and CEO of Verifax Incorporated. John is a DC native with a background in physics and law. With over 30 years of experience in high tech, John was a part of the late 1990s effort to create a suite of technology to adapt to the digital world that included anonymous email, currency, and customer motivation detection. And in 2010, John was asked to assist the United Kingdom group in presenting Libyan broadcasting on disinformation issues as the US and Russian systems first came online. In 2019, Verifax Incorporated was formed as a new behavioral science tool. Verifax would go on to win the NATO Innovations Countering Cognitive Warfare Challenge and be featured at South by Southwest Pitch and be selected for Mission Link Next 2023 cohort. So with that, I'm going to open it up to our panelists now. I've asked each of them to give a few minutes of remarks, and then again afterwards we'll go into questions and answers. So first, Zhihao.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Zhihao from IORG. We are a Taiwanese organization working on detecting information manipulation. We also run media literacy campaigns and education programs in Taiwan as well. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having us. Before I talk about our own work, I want to let you know that we have 5 representatives from Taiwan today, including Billy and myself from Cofacts and IORG. We also have Mr. Liu Wenbing from our Ministry of Justice Investigation Bureau, very long name. They're specialized in investigation of this kind of affairs. We also have Mr. Yang Shunqing from Doublethink Lab. He's an analyst lead at the organization. We also have Ms. Cho. She is the CEO of our Taiwan Fact Check Center. So if you have various questions regarding our works, please feel free to look for my colleagues hiding amongst you in the audience. Right. We're here really to share with you the diversity of Taiwanese experiences. So thank you again. Before I begin, PRC threats against my country, Taiwan, is hybrid and persistent. We all know that now. They have a variety of tactics and strategies working against us, including information manipulation, which IORG specializes in, because information manipulation is a tactic that can be combined with other tactics. For example, conventional cyber attacks steals information, sensitive information, and information manipulation campaigns amplifies these kind of sensitive information. Or if you run military intimidation against Taiwan, you need information manipulation campaigns to amplify the effect of these actual physical movements. So we're seeing more and more these kind of activities working against us nowadays through the variety of civil society efforts and also government effort in Taiwan. All right, IORG focuses on the analysis of information manipulation. We look for not just narratives, but also behaviors and manipulative environmental mechanism online. We're also measuring the impact of information manipulation through national surveys, focus group discussions, and also behavioral experiments, looking at the correlation between information manipulation and people's behavior, and also causality using experiments. For us, during our last election season, also constantly, like our moderator has mentioned, PRC information manipulation has been really trying to create an alternative worldview for our people. And to extend Mandarin readers around the world, including the Chinese-speaking communities here in the US and in Canada and all across the world. We have documented probably hundreds of narratives throughout the years since 2019. And to us, they have really 5 strategies to, largely speaking, discredit Taiwanese democracy, and of course, discrediting Taiwanese allies like the United States, and also to glorify the PRC itself, not just as a powerful player in the world, but also claiming that their own governance model is superior to the Western democracy model. Here to the right are some observable tactics that we have been documenting throughout the years. And nowadays, instead of creating original narratives to spread, they oftentimes adopt and distort Taiwanese voices so that they avoid accountability and causing troubles for us researchers. In the last election, we also saw the commission of fake polls commissioned by the Fujian CCP actors to a fake media organization in Taiwan, spreading these fake polls, trying to sway public opinions. We know this due to the excellent work of our MJIB, so that we are more alert with these new tactics trying to influence our election integrity. So one strategy and one tactic examples really quick. US skepticism. In an effort to discredit our allies, US skepticism narratives have been spreading in Taiwan throughout the years, probably longer than any of our organization has been around to detect them. IORG published a report back in August last year documenting at least 84 of these narratives and looking into their behavior spreading online. There are 8 types of these narratives. We don't have time to get through the whole report, but I encourage you to look for the full content on our website as well. And on the right, there are some recently popular narratives. On the top, you see the biolab narrative. According to our investigation, these kind of narratives have been popping up in PRC state media and Taiwanese mainstream media as early as 2019. So it's really a long-term effort trying to discredit the United States and also Ukraine and Taiwan in this instance. To us, although not all US skepticism narratives are coming from the PRC, some are domestic to Taiwan, they all sort of pairs with existing PRC propaganda to create this alternative worldview that I was speaking about. So this is something that we need to sort of pay more attention to. One tactic. So our moderator talked about TikTok. We done a preliminary study to look for these what we call PRC proxy accounts on TikTok. These are TikTok accounts that does not appear to be state-sponsored. They don't have state media logo. They don't have any kind of apparent affiliation with the PRC state. But they are spreading highly similar, nearly identical, or sometimes completely identical content, these short videos on TikTok. So because IORG is now equipped with cross-platform databases from YouTube videos, TikTok videos, and Douyin videos, the domestic version of TikTok inside the PRC, we are able to use video feature extraction technologies to match these videos and look for commonalities. This is a very simple example. You can see from the right, my right, your left. This is the original footage from a Taiwanese political commentating show called TVBS Situation Room. And then it's taken by, in the middle, the Douyin PRC state account to spread their propaganda, to store Taiwanese voices. And to the right, this is a PRC proxy account that we found on TikTok called 2颗茶叶蛋, 2 tea eggs. Essentially using the same footage, but slightly different in edits to avoid detection, but we were able to detect them anyways. So we will expand this kind of investigation to look for more evidence on the platform of TikTok, sort of amplifying PRC propaganda. We'll continue to push this kind of technical advances and continue to publish public reports for all our partners and people who are concerned with these kind of issue to I guess, advance the discussion on evidence-based scientific research. So thank you for listening.
Wonderful, fabulous, very interesting. Next, Lillian.
Hi. Oh.
Yeah, they're switching files.
Give it a second.
Yeah. Just hold on. Let them switch.
I can do small talk. Hi everyone, I'm Billion.
Should
Just trying to
there we go.
preserve everyone's time.
Right.
I established a fact-checking chamber in 2016. I'm from one of the civic community called Zero. That means if you think the government is not compliant enough, let's rebuild the government from zero. Also use some software engineering why because they use 0 and 1 to do those all kind of programming work. Have you heard about like big Lord theory? Like during the World War II, Joseph Goebbels like put this kind of theory among the propaganda. Actually, I graduated from political science background, so must like learn about like propaganda campaign and use those kind of news media and what is big like theory. If you continuously put and lie and keep repeating it to different kind of groups and continuously, it can be taken advantage on not only democracy, economic affairs, also political and military situation. So actually, it can really impact to democracy. Take back to 2020 and 2024. Compared to before the COVID-19, all the ruling party paid the price more than what COVID-19 happened. For example, disinformation might say U.S. military that participated in a sports game, then trying to conduct COVID-19 for around the world. Also in European countries, they also said Italian was the place originated the COVID-19. And as well, you can see quite a lot of the government and the ruling party need to change the position right after, especially like these 2 years. For example, like Canadian election, Portuguese election, also last year, Slovakian election. There is also the one who is a pro-Russia Federation got elected during the election. And also it happened also to US and Taiwanese election. I mean, in this January, Taiwanese civil society has a lot of challenges around if the individual trying to blame on the COVID-19 situation, and only the pandemic, but also the injection, the jab, and different kind of conspiracy theory, and around the international support toward Taiwan. So that kind of disinformation, for example, they say USA would like to invest people lab in Taiwan. Compared to 2 years ago, during Russian Federation trying to invade Ukraine, they also say USA would like to, USA had invest people lab inside Ukraine. And they also say Russian Federation trying to rescue those kids locked under Ukraine dungeon. You can see Taiwanese and some disinformation might say USA would like to invest a nuclear weapon, biological weapon in Taiwan. Why it should be in Taiwan? Because like they say, genetically, Taiwanese people has a similar gene with Chinese people because they are Asian. Those kind of disinformation trying to polarize the society. Actually, some people do really believe that because it can trigger different kind of like something got hidden by the government, something got hidden by the professor, expertises, and the think tanks. How do we deal with this information? We found even though some really great reporters, think tanks, and scholars, especially like political science scholars, they conduct really nice reports, assess researchers, but people don't read it. And also because they are much more like elite and some well-educated people oriented, it's not that really got accepted by the general public. We found there might be a gap, and also echo chambers around the public. We're trying to imitate the way how people communicate with their relatives, their friends, and also those that community and minority group. We use chatbot. So our chatbot has 3 features. First is multimedia fact check. You can do fact check on not only text, video, audio, and images. Second is AI classifier. Since we have accumulated around 8 years data inside the database. So now we can do some quite basic AI tag. That is like AI, did a really great work in the past. We can AI categorize like Chinese propaganda, international relationship, COVID-19, gender equity, different kind of topic for think tanks, for scholars, and for some like governments and some international friends. The third, we all understand that generative AI can have a big impact among since last year because it got really trendy. So we not only want to, people do have a fear around generative AI, that we want to let GAI can be helpful around the public. So we connected some large language model and use some prompt trying to improve our AI chatbot can be more helpful with collaboration with AI. For example, they might provide pre-bunking media literacy training to the public. If that is related to this information that haven't been verified, haven't been fact-checked before, our chatbot might provide different kind of like aspect and clues. For example, don't trust this media. Have you checked the original content from this disinformation, suspicious messages, and trying to lead the public to understand what they can do if they want to do fact check. Also, we provide open data. You can download it under like CSV file type, and it's all public. We want to make those kind of like trend and analytics can be visual. And also, our chatbot is quite easy. You forward this information to the chatbot, and you will receive a factual report, the reason why. Also, you can add the chatbot inside your closing chat room. Then that fact check chatbot fact check itself. We provide open analytics and different kind of trend and graphic to scholars, to think tanks, let them do their research. For example, like compared to GI, that's the reason why we want to conduct the kind of like large language model, because it can also read the topic, read inside the images and the video, to read the content, to provide subtitles. For example, there's a fake video. Sorry, it's not really clear. It's Donald Trump. And actually, trying to imitate Donald Trump's voices and her mouth shapes. And also, the other cases might be Xi Jinping. However, both of these videos are all generative AI conducted. We can see that our challenges that has been like much more like dangerous than before. So we're trying to gather quite a large community, combat this information altogether. We use gamification, trying to let people think of like combat this information can be fun. Also, we provide different kind of feedback. We rely on different kind of feedback, no matter that it's positive feedback or negative feedback, to evaluate if the word is compliant or not. Also provide technology support. For example, we provide bilingual toolkits. That means like if you are an English speaker, you can use our source code and read all the English content and make your own Cofacts in your laptop. For example, Thailand uses our source code. Our source code is under like MIT licenses, and our all open data, all the disinformation messages and reply are under CCBY licenses. We provide all the report, all the analysis on the public. And that's my last slide. You feel free to contact me by bill@cofacts.tw. And look forward to the open discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Yeah, the videos are interesting. We'll talk about that later, I think, in the Q&A. But last but not least, John Fuse, if you'll wrap us up.
Sure. I do not have a PowerPoint. I'm going old school with the index cards. I find it helps in this situation. So Verifix, we offer a measure of effectiveness. We go into any population. We take the populations apart and understand what's motivating them. We understand the narratives. We test, and we segment. Taiwan is interesting because it comes up in every single project around the world. I mean, Taiwan is impacting US, Europe, Africa, Asia. You cannot be in a contested issue right now or environment that Taiwan is not an issue, right? Because it affects China trade. It affects the country's perceived relationship with China, perceived relationship with the US. It comes up in everything. So what they're doing gets amplified 100 times in terms of its impact ripple effect down around the world, which is something very important and why Taiwan is very important. The cognitive landscape, it's broad, right? Oftentimes, I think when we talk about it, we get sucked into thinking about elections only, right? And it's too easy to do that.
Yeah.
This issue comes up, we've seen it come up in universities, LGBT issues, work from home, travel, Russia, that was pre-Ukraine invasion, amplifying work from home narrative in the East Coast of the US to reduce travel, to soften up the Ukraine economy prior to invasion. Air traffic controllers, fomenting disputes over wages to shut down air traffic controllers in Poland. Energy, coal inducing protests, even food prices. Food prices is a common issue, right? That's easy to foment distrust. But those are issues that get amplified that are impacting elections, but that aren't an election issue, right? And so oftentimes we fail to see where the attacks are really coming from. The goal of any cognitive attack, it's not just purely from an election standpoint, it's really to achieve a strategic objective, right? So that's China achieving a strategic objective, or Russia or US or anyone else who's offensively playing in this space. the objective doesn't have to be directly against a single country, right? So you can induce an impact in country X to then reduce trade to actually get the impact you're looking for, say, in Taiwan. So attacks on Taiwan are just not happening in Taiwan. They're happening around the world, and that is a problem. The entire game, essentially in the cognitive warfare space, from our standpoint, is uncertainty management. When you induce uncertainty, the brain has certain triggers that we cannot stop. They are subconscious. They happen automatically. We can go right past the filtering. We can induce change. And that's where we see this fight happening. So uncertainty management is the biggest issue. At which point, the best offense or the best defense for any country is an offense. And that's not offense as a dirty word, like we're going to subconsciously change people. No, it's their communications, right? If you can reduce uncertainty in your communications, if a government understands its population and the population understands the government, and we have good communications between the two, it's much, much more difficult to insert uncertainty and undermine something. So oftentimes we're approaching this issue from a defensive standpoint. Can we identify the attacks? I always say you really have to start on the offensive side. How's your PR team doing, right? How is your messaging on healthcare? How is your messaging on security? How is your messaging on rights for smaller portions of your population? Do you understand what their issues are? Because if you don't, that's what China's coming in on. That's what Russia's coming in on. Those are the kind of the carrier waves that these messages then are coming in on to achieve the strategic objective. They're not really advancing LGBT rights. They might be fomenting that to create distrust, move people to an opposition party, get their candidate in play, and it becomes a game of chess, right? So that's really what we're starting to play with, managing and reducing uncertainty. We do it by coming in and using some similar techniques to the Russian system mainly. We're using a special polling technique. We can come in covertly into any country at any time, extract what's happening in the country, population level, not social media, right? The measure of effectiveness that you're really gonna have to monitor and you're gonna have to look for in terms of stability in a country is the population, not what people say on social media, right? 20 to 80% of a population might be on a certain social media platform. A larger portion may not really express an opinion. So it's a great delivery tool, but it's not what's happening in the population itself, right? So we come in, population, we look at beliefs because the belief directly ties to kinetic action. If you believe something is true, you see the world in that light and you act in that light. I believe consumer spending is increasing, I'm gonna spend more money. Whether or not the world economy really is doing better or not doesn't make a difference. So those are the type of issues we come in. 2 to 3 months, we'll take apart a population, take apart a country to understand exactly what's happening, what chess pieces move what piece, what narratives are moving those issues as well. It's very easy to change the norm in a country by simply amplifying issues that will change the norm. So you look at a lot of what's happening in the US, a lot of what's happening in Taiwan, really throughout, it's people coming in on these issues to change the perceived norm. Because if I change the perceived norm, I change the conduct. And if that conduct helps me achieve my strategic objective, that's the goal. A properly run cognitive warfare campaign is not detectable. It becomes the people's reality. Once you've shifted someone, right? Once you've shifted someone to believe that COVID was man-made, and was out to kill everyone and everything else, that's their reality. It's like a flat earther. I always tell people, if you think you have this perfect solution for cognitive warfare, go talk to a flat earther and come back and tell me how that worked. You like censorship? Tell your spouse next time you're having a disagreement to shut up. Tell them they're not allowed to talk. That's censorship. You're not going to be in that relationship for very long, right? Those are the issues that come up. So we do measure of effectiveness in the populations. We do narrative selection. Those are the issues that, if amplified, will change a population's belief. We either send those to the offensive messaging, how to get better PR, what words to use, what words not to use to make sure that you're adequately addressing the population and they're hearing you. That also gives us what bad guys use. So we recently were running in an Asian country right now. And as of this last Thursday, we were monitoring for two triggers that would undermine trust in government, right? So that's an easy issue. Trust in government, if that gets undermined prior to an election, China stands a better chance, right? So we're looking at trust in government as of last Thursday, two key indicators that would drive trust in government lower when active on Twitter and Google Trends. They went from sporadic searches in country over the last 6 months to constant. That's the front wave of a cognitive attack, right? That's the front wave of something happening. It could be organic, it's very possible, but you need to understand that even an organic attack is gonna have an effect on the government. It still has to be monitored, tracked, understood. They're very fluid systems. Solution in my mind is a collection of technologies. No one technology will ever solve this problem. And that's all I have.
All right, wonderful. Ooh, a lot to dive into here. We're going to go into questions and answers from the audience in just a minute, so prepare your questions. I'm going to take the moderator's privilege and ask the first couple, if that's all right. So, John, you mentioned this is an international collective. It's not just specific to one country. Sometimes it goes through third countries to affect many populations, and then the need for various multitude of technologies and efforts to combat this. And so my question is, are our efforts enough? Are we doing enough at this moment right now? Because I think there's a lot of concern about the scalability and the way that technology is changing as well, that it makes it even harder to combat. Artificial intelligence has it's beneficial on the defensive side, but our opponents can use it just as well to create new efforts to issue disinformation. And so what are your thoughts on the scalability? What's the future of cognitive warfare or election interference, or cognitive offense, defense look like in your minds? And feel free, we'll just maybe go down the row here. What does the future of cognitive warfare look like on a scale?
I mean, we look at Taiwan,
Yeah.
That's our limitation. We look at the Mandarin language, that's our limitation. We're very small teams, that's also our limitation. So given all that, I'm not sure if I'm ready to answer like what is the future of cognitive warfare. We know that this issue in Taiwan is still highly polarizing and highly sensitive, right? And to make our effort more effective, at least in Taiwan, we need more societal consensus on this is really happening, like on the base level, right? We're really under threat, and these are all the evidences that we are able to gather throughout the years. And in that, we both enhance people's trust in government activities and also in civil society activities as well. Even an organization such as the Taiwan Fact Check Center, as neutral as it can be, are oftentimes painted as partisan and politically motivated, right? So not to say researchers like us. Despite different development in the world about who's going to do what and who's going to develop what kind of technology to launch what kind of campaign, as societies, I think also as civil society organizations, I think we are focused on to get the people ready, whatever may come at us. Of course, we're all concerned with generative AI, and my team and I have been talking about these in the past couple of days about figuring out what is actually out there. For example, I think my colleague can also echo on this. For our election in this year, fabricated content that are not very technically advanced is still dominating the conversation when it comes to these kind of fabricated video and audio clips. Right? You don't really need sophisticated technologies to move people to as John was saying, insert uncertainty against certain parties or certain candidates. But I think we're right to be worried, but we just don't need to be overly scared, I think. I think I'll stop there, and then maybe I'll think of
Yeah,
something
course,
later.
Of course, no worries. You want to take a stab at this?
Do you want to say something about this?
We understand people has a fear around warfare. And also, based on our election, you can see it also happened on 2 years ago, the local election. Some propaganda might put warfare as a slogan, as a topic, trying to influence, trying to manipulate people's decision among election. Like if you vote for this specific party, you may vote for peace. If you vote for a specific party, you may vote for the war. For example, in Ukraine, they also have some political campaigns say no longer the war. Slovakian election, the one who say we need to be pro peace. Like warfare has already turned a lot of the budget and expense in our country. It also is a disaster among the tax system. That kind of talk got disseminated among general public, not only in Taiwan, China, some other places, but also in USA. That kind of discourse, it seems like it needs much more talk and discussion at this kind of sharing session with different kind of people. So actually what we're trying to do is do civil empowerment. We get into a different kind of groups. For example, in Taiwan, some community center, community groups might be religion group, as like LGBT groups. Why they have so much negative impact? Because, for example, in my district, our city councilor, who got the most vote, he signed a contract with the conservative churches, and he declares he might against marriage equality. So the whole district, the whole churches in that community might vote for him. Actually, that works. That also happened on election campaign. Like Taiwan would like to elongate the military service, and if we could really allow trying to increasing the tax among the military for national defense, or are we trying to do more defense rather than it just like different kind of terms among the warfare, and how do we defend people, defend civic around this kind of negative situation? So from our perspective, what we're trying to do is keep talking with different kind of groups. For example, I get into Buddhist community, also those Catholic and Christian community. In Taiwan, we do have some people don't even speak Chinese. Taiwanese speak indigenous languages. We get into that community trying to speak the language and trying to talk with them. Never exclude any kind of minority group, trying to be inclusive, trying to be transparent and inclusive. I think that's our way trying to engage with people. Thank you.
So my comment on the future of this area, you think about cognitive warfare, it's soft power projection, right? Projection of your country's views. It's national security and it's economic security. There's probably only about 4 or 5 countries in the world right now, I would say, that are on a top level in terms of being able to conduct cognitive campaigns and defend. Taiwan's one of them. The disparity between countries in terms of where they are on this field is vast. You walk into a NATO, there are countries that are 20 years behind in terms of the research and understanding of what's even happening in this space, what's even possible. They can't even dream what's going on today. I think this is going to move well past just a defensive. I think this is the new foundation for governments, and how governments will interact with other governments.
So you mentioned both of your programs, they work analyzing Chinese language media. You say you mostly focus on Taiwan in particular, but a lot of that social media is shared, of course, with the PRC. And so I wonder, when we talk about offensive, I believe the PRC isn't just targeting either the civilians of Taiwan or the Americans. They're also targeting their own people. Right. And so, do either of your programs analyze that, like the impact that it's having within mainland China, as well as the effect it's having within Taiwan?
Yeah, so John said something about social media not being representative of what people think.
Right.
Yes, especially in the PRC, I think we all know that. So we view Weibo, for example, as a reflection of PRC censorship, not Chinese nationals inside PRC. But our database does cover Weibo and their state media content both on their websites and social media platforms in China, and also on Douyin as well. So this enables us to do sort of cross-strait, if you will, content analysis to find traces of PRC content in Taiwanese information space. But I would still say to an extent, the two information environments are still separated. There are websites that Taiwanese people just does not go to, right? So in this case, this manipulative messaging is really relying on local actors in Taiwan to bring them inside our audiences, inside our population. I think a prominent example was back in 2019, where the Kansai airport in Japan was flooded, and the messaging in China was brought into Taiwan and causing big reaction amongst our people and backslashes against our government actions outside of Taiwan. Yeah, so that's a long answer to your question. I'm not sure.
No problem. Billion, how about your Cofacts? Do you analyze a lot of what the messaging that the PRC has within China as well as within Taiwan? Is Cofacts international, I guess, in that sense?
We're dealing with the data. So actually, also, especially in closing chat room. So for example, we don't see, oh, this post is from Weibo, WeChat. We might do some investigation to see it originated from somewhere. But actually, what I'm trying to focus is what happened inside closing chamber, what really happened inside echo chamber. Because we think of like in some public space, for example, like Meta, Instagram, Reels, or even maybe TikTok. Yes, it might be on first time like minority, but still like for the public post. So it can be factored by others, by comment, by some share or share post. But inside closing chat room, especially in our culture, people tend not to interrupt somebody's talk. However, we still can see different kind of like pattern, like inside Chinese itself, or maybe how they spread those information to the board. For example, some pattern is blaming on USA. It shows some pattern during the warfare because you can see they say Zelensky has a mansion inside Miami in Florida. They also say the son of the prime minister from Israel, he also hid himself inside Florida. And inside this election, they talked the president lighting the William lie. He said his son is himself inside Berkeley in California, not even coming back to Taiwan to get the military service for the country. That kind of talk, that kind of speech is trying to make people think of the government is not trustworthy. They might have a condition with corruption, so that's the reason why they do have mention, they do have privilege, not get into the military services, and trying to make people think of like democracy is useless. What PRC trying to do is make Taiwanese people think and make around the world think of like maybe Asian country doesn't need democracy at all. They think democracy is chaos. They think of election is chaos. Even post-election, you can see Taiwan has a lot of disinformation around election fraud. And also, that's my suggestion to another country that might have upcoming election. People might think of disinformation might put your election much more not trustworthy campaign. Just saying the election might be fair, that the politician has got some special privilege from the public, not from the integrity situation to got it elected. The kind of talk is trying to spread to the world. So-called Western democracy, so-called scientific democracy is not existent. And I think that is how Chinese propaganda are trying to spread to the world.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant for what we're dealing with.
Let me just a quick comment. I think because there's something special about what's here, about what's with Taiwan. And if you realize that, right, the Taiwan-China relationship, Taiwan has been subject to more cognitive warfare, right, over the years from Taiwan than the U. Right, before the U.S. even realized what it was, Taiwan had to deal with it. Taiwan is an interesting area because of that history, right? The tools coming out of Taiwan are slightly different from the rest of the world because they're coming with that history that everyone else is lacking, right? They're coming with that relationship with China, with, right, their sovereignty being attacked, right, and the cultural similarities. It's very unique. So in terms of cognitive warfare, in terms of tools, Taiwan is unique.
Well then, let me build off of that then. We're just several months away from our own election, and you say offense is the best defense maybe in this space. Are we learning from Taiwan? Are we being better? Are we getting better prepared, or are we near prepared for what's coming or what's already happening?
I think U.S. domestic is very different from U.S. overseas.
Yeah.
I don't think domestic is in any way prepared.
Well, then, what can we perhaps learn from your experiences, then your company's experiences as we look toward our upcoming election?
I'm not so much worried about our election. The U.S., right, regardless of politics, the U.S. will elect a president. We will elect congressmen in 2 years. We will elect senators. We will have another president in another 4 years. The system will continue. And in many respects, in terms of cognitive warfare, it's not against a candidate, it's against a system, destroying the system. Right? And so you undermine the system, you replace it, authoritarians come in, foreign regimes come in, and a group loses its freedom. We'll be fine.
Relative term there. Yeah. All right, let's open it up for questions from the audience here. And then also, maybe we can hear from some of your colleagues who joined you today, if you want to maybe speak briefly. But any hands or any volunteers at this point? Yes, right here on the left, the young woman. Can you wait for the microphone and then just briefly introduce yourself?
I'm Camilla Bailey. I work at Radio Free Asia, and we did a lot of coverage, especially in the lead up to Taiwan's elections. And you noted that disinformation is by no means limited to election season, but I'm curious if you all saw within Taiwan civil society any kind of boost in public interest in combating disinformation and kind of being more proactive in their fact-checking in the lead-up and then kind of immediately following the elections.
I know the fact-checkers are really, really busy right before and after the election because of the election fraud rumors this year. And then, I do think for us it's a constant battle. Like my first slide says, PRC threat against our country is constant, persistent, and hybrid, right? I think we're all standing firmly on our post, doing whatever we do every day. For example, my company looks at current political events and economic issues like food safety is a big issue here in Taiwan. So we look for signs that are possible PRC actions every day, all day. So it might be a little biased to ask that question, and my answer to your question might be a little biased because we are working on this every day. But I think sort of over a 4-year period, let's say, since 2020, generally speaking, Taiwanese people are now pretty much all aware that disinformation is here, information manipulation is here, it's harmful to our democracy, we need to do something about it. But at the same time, polls do show us that people rarely use fact-checking tools, for example. They rarely, still, less than we'd like them to, check credible sources and stuff like that. So there's spaces for us to improve as well. We're definitely not a perfect system yet in terms of media literacy, in terms of healthy public debate.
Actually, I made a poll before the election. I asked the public, where do you think the disinformation coming from? Over 85% of Taiwanese people think of like disinformation coming from China. But I think that is only for like Taiwanese perspective. I mean, if you put this question much more rather than disinformation to propaganda, each kind of district have a different kind of answer. For example, if you put that in Asia Pacific, people might think of that might be China. If you put that in European country, people might think of like Russia Federation. However, when I was in like Asia Pacific, I had another conference in Australia. They say, actually, there's another voices which is not showing on the option. They say it might be USA. They say USA promote the most propaganda around the world. compared to some African country, also Chinese have a lot of like investment among that kind of countries and also around other like European countries. We do think of like that kind of fear, that kind of like disinformation campaign and fact checking is crucial. It's critical inside her community. And what Taiwanese people and what these kind of like my colleagues, think tanks, researchers, fact checkers trying to do is trying to motivate people why disinformation is important. And I think people got aware of like how disinformation is crucial in this situation, because actually it's just like a trade war, it's just like economic war. Everything is happening, and that is how we're trying to cultivate our next generation and in the future.
I don't have a comment on that directly, but I would have a suggestion or request, and that is even as a news reporter, as an organization that's broadcasting, start including sources. Habitualize people to expecting to hear a source of where that fact came from or where that important information came from. And once they start hearing those same sources that are reliable over and over again, you start to induce them and make their job so much easier when they find it's a fact that's from a source that's not reliable or blah, blah, blah. They start to differentiate that. Until the news media adds sources back into their reporting, their job is so much harder.
Thank you, agreed.
We had a question here up in the front.
Yes, sir, yeah. Oh, the microphone, yeah.
Hello, I'm Stephen Basil from the National Guard Bureau. One of the narratives that I am hearing coming out of the PRC is the fact that in the last Taiwan election, no party got the majority of the vote. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the TPP just got slightly north of about 40% or so, correct? Which would indicate a plurality, but not the majority of the people voting for one party. In your opinion, what degree do you think Chinese CCP disinformation had on the voting not receiving a majority but a plurality of the vote?
Interesting question. How much did PRC actually influence the election, basically?
If they did at all.
I would say, as I mentioned, actually, all the ruling parties need to pay the price after COVID-19, actually. I think around the world, all the ruling parties, in some cases, lose their position, or maybe like lose their seats inside the parliament. And it also happened in Taiwan. I won't say voting for TPP must like voting for democracy. Actually, democracy is like, well, political might change, and actually that's much more healthier. I would say is, Taiwanese citizens had some decisions saying they're trying to be neutral among that kind of like stay behind and trying to, they'll put like our job from the president, they need to like defense, diplomacy, like 交国防.
Sure. That's about it.
So actually, that's how Taiwanese people vote for the president. They vote their attitude toward how my nationality will be like. However, when it comes to parliament members, they'll much more like think of, for example, because like election system difference. So actually, for the especially congressman, parliament member, they might focus on because they do have a responsibility among their district. For example, in Taipei City, maybe in Kaohsiung, in Tainan City, they need to focus on the welfare. They need to focus on some internal political issues among their local district. So I won't say that kind of Congress seats and dimension or proportion does that mean like PRC really influenced the Taiwanese system or disinformation campaign? I would say disinformation has already existed for dozens of years. What PRC trying to do is to influence Taiwanese democracy, making people, when they go voting, they'll vote for some reality or some result that is much more pro-PRC, not pro-Taiwan. So far, I would say inside this 2024 election, Taiwanese citizens already show their attitude from the presidential election. However, from the parliament member seat and also the local election, they show a totally different attitude because actually, from Taiwan's perspective, especially the civics perspective, it's not only around diplomacy. I know for the international relationship, international country, it's super important around the diplomacy issue, national defense issue. And however, among Taiwanese citizens itself, for example, my hometown is from the countryside. I'm from Yilan, I'm in Taipei City. And in my hometown, there's quite controversial issue among the seats, among the parliament member. People think of like political issue, public affairs can be super far from their daily life. And actually, they need a lot of discussion and communication among the public. And actually, if we don't do that, PRC will do it.
I will say, if you want to try and see whether a cognitive attack is going on, generally, if you look at the polling right before an election, about 2 weeks out, if there's a 3 to 5% surprise, you can kind of sense that something was launched within those 2 weeks, right? Generally, most of the attacks before an election, they'll do groundwork and then they unload that 2 weeks out. And so if you see that surprise, that's normally why. It's about 3 to 5% though.
So the narratives amplified by PRC are oftentimes nowadays originating in Taiwan. Taiwanese voices, anti-government, critics. So it makes PRC campaign in Taiwan intertwined with our domestic political discourse. So it makes our jobs very difficult to separate if this is a foreign campaign or this is actually legitimate local discussion about politics, right? Or the effectiveness of our democracy. Like Billion says, it's not all about national defense. It's not all about international relations. It's also about people's lives, economic policies, work, right? So that's the first thing. And then second thing, it's very difficult to establish causality between something that we observe and something that has happened, like election results. But we can definitely see correlation. For example, both IORG and I think Doublethink Labs did polls right before the election looking at the penetration of some of these prominent narratives into our society. Some of them are really high in terms of, for example, one of our question was, how much do you agree with the narrative that by being close to the U.S., Taiwanese government are pushing Taiwan towards war. In our poll in October 2023, it's about 30% level of agreement to that narrative. I think that gives us a sense of that's not very high, but still high enough for us to worry about maybe there's a trend there. Maybe it's a growing sentiment in the society that our current direction is actually dangerous. It's not sort of moving the majority of the population, but we're worried about it's that causing more polarization in our society, especially between different groups. Because when you look at the correlation of level of agreement to those manipulative narratives, when you correlate that to partisan identity, you see a much higher difference. First, supporters of DPP the majority of them does not agree with this, but the supporters of opposition parties might have a completely different idea about this narrative. So that's something that to be worried about. And maybe these campaigns are not changing election results, but they're changing how people view each other, making us trust each other less and making it more difficult for us to communicate. That may be even a greater threat and a more damaging results of these campaigns. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
The Taiwan has come up in our own political discourse most recently, either U.S.-Taiwan relationship or Taiwanese companies or American companies in Taiwan, sort of the resiliency of whether the relationship is stable or if there would be some sort of conflict, what does that mean for our relationship? I understand that, as you've already mentioned a couple of times, that PRC efforts in Taiwan have tried to bridge, or I guess expand the gap of trust between Taiwan and the United States for Taiwan's own election. So I'm assuming that this will also be more of an issue in our own election efforts to, as Judd said, attack the system, so the system of U.S.-Taiwan relations. And so, As we approach our election, election integrity is always a big issue. Of course, we have our own domestic issues where we either have disinformation or misinformation, growing distrust either within our political system or around various efforts, the Biden administration or a potential, second-term Trump administration or maybe a third-party candidate. So we have a lot to think about going forward. And so I want to offer each of you perhaps some final thoughts, either what you learned, maybe a little bit more about your experience, your companies, and just maybe just closing thoughts. And we'll go down the line here.
Okay. Closing thoughts. I understand there's, our countries are very different in their nature, but I would definitely say that if you replace Taiwan with the U.S., when we're looking at in my slides, what they do to Taiwan would probably be what they do to you as well, right? To discredit your democracy, to discredit the effectiveness of your democracy. By the way, it's not very difficult to do. Taiwanese democracies are also inefficient and does not work for some people, in fact. And then to discredit your efforts to support and your partnerships with other allies in the world. I am not sure what for the narratives of U.S. skepticism that we see in the Mandarin language space, I'm not sure how much of that would be effective in your language space, in your public discourse. But I do think by examining them closely, you would find these uncertainties that John was suggesting, and in turn find vulnerabilities in your society. Maybe not generally speaking, but at least to some groups, right? I think to us, because we're a data organization to start with, we are still focused on gathering more data in the public sphere to look for narratives that might cause more anxiety, more uncertainty, more polarization. And I do think government actions or government communications towards those narratives are very important. And as civil society in Taiwan, we've observed several occasions where government were very quick to come out and say something is fake or something is misinformation. That would often backfire. And might not be the best strategy moving forward. I would say, I guess, data-driven research and caution in public discussion is still very, I think, potent. And in the long term, I do still think that media literacy, or let's say digital civics education, is very, very important. Although it might be in the short term seemingly not very effective, but I do think we need commitment to this educational effort from all sides, despite political affiliation, despite if you're in the warfare space or if you're in the education or data research space, everyone should continue sort of to build and prepare ourselves and also the next generation of our countries for them to become informed and functional voters when they join this messy process of democracy. Because the reason we do all this, at least for me, is that we want a healthy democracy. It's not really about getting rid of anything or getting rid of any one of us. It's about we need to come together and make our systems work, and I think that's the ultimate goal.
I always believe every single penny and every click determine our future. So actually, yes, we understand like Chinese, they do have a quite large market. They do have a super affordable prices, but actually we still like lose something. And I think that's something when we talk to people, when we do some social engagement, I'm always trying to make all the public understand how democracy is important. Democracy is not free.
Two last thoughts from me. One, when you're talking about disinformation, just be careful, because sometimes disinformation is the attack, right? Talking about disinformation breeds distrust. It alienates people, it polarizes people. So it's one of these odd issues where we have to report on it, but we also, the reporting on it causes a trouble, right? Like reporting suicides, right? It induces more suicide. So I think, one, just to be careful of that. Two, I'm just very hopeful. This space is dynamic. There's a lot of cool stuff going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of victories. And at the end of the day, when they work, it's going to just make better communication, right? And hopefully when we come out of this, it's going to be better population to government communication and more people feeling part of the solution and interacting with it.
Great. Well, thank you all, and thank you all for joining us here in person or online. Stay tuned for more Hudson events in the future. Of course, you can join us online or in person anytime, but let's give a round of applause to our panelists, and thank you all for joining us today.